Всем привет! Hello, hello, welcome to English You Can Use, the program where you can learn some English that you can use today. I'm Mett Tomson. I'm the Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Consulate in Yekaterinburg, and we got a great program for you tonight. We have a very special guest from Moscow. We've been going to Moscow quite a bit because we have friends and colleagues there, but I think you'll want to stick around for this. Karl Штольц, the Minister Counselor of Public Affairs at the U.S. Embassy, has a very long storied history with Russia, and you're going to want to stick around to hear about him and his career. So say hello. Hello, Svetlana. Привет. Alek. Nice to see all of you. If you haven't been here ever, say hello. If you have been here, also say hello. I can't wait till we can do these in public. Hello, Konstantin. Nice to see you. So I'm going to get right to it here. Let's get to our next our phrase of the day or word of the day. Sometimes I go back and forth. And this is a word. It's very easy. Very easy. And you'll hear Americans say it a lot. Bummer. Bummer. Does anybody know what bummer means? It's not boomer like in Russian. I think that's BMW. This is bummer. And bummer simply means it's a misfortune or something to be disappointed about or depressed. Sorry, I brought up a sad term. I should have more positive words. But if you hear Americans talk and use this word, they'll use, it was such a bummer that we can't meet today, or that it is such a bummer. It's a bummer you didn't come today. It's a bummer that the pandemic isn't over, okay? So you see how I'm using it? It's something that's bad, or it's a misfortune. So I'm going to come back to that at the end. Don't forget that word. All right. So here are some phrases. I'm reading the comments here from Alec, and that sound really, really bad in English, but they describe something that's not so bad. All right. So the first one is, you can see, beating a dead horse. Anybody having guesses? It's not the literal meaning of hitting a horse. Don't think that. So I'll give you a second to write that down. Beating a dead horse. And also listen to the pronunciation. Hello, Roman. Nice to see you. All right. Let's see what it is in English. It's to bring up a previously settled issue. So like to talk about something that you already figured out, or so if this happens with spouses sometimes, where they say, I told you that you have to take the garbage out every week. And you say, it's like beating a dead horse. I have to keep bringing it up with you. That's how we use it. Izvinение мертвой лошади. No, it's not that. Well, like it's not literally hitting a horse. I don't want to advocate, as a vegetarian, I don't advocate hitting horses or animals. All right. Next one, up in the air. This does not mean something's literally up in the air. This is the name of a great film with George Clooney, but it means that something still needs to be settled. It is unresolved. Does that make sense? Unresolved. Another word, an easy way to say that is, we haven't decided it yet. So whether we go to the beach this summer is still up in the air. Does that sound good? Hello, Alexei, and hello, Daria. Thank you for joining us. All right, let's go to the next one. To stab someone in the back. No, we don't mean to actually hurt somebody. But you can probably guess what this means. This probably translates in many languages. To stab someone in the back. I'll give you a second to write that down. It means a betrayal of trust. So you've done something behind someone's back, or you've set them up for something really bad, and it's a really negative. To be accused of this is not good. So just remember, when you see that in a movie or in a book, they don't mean to kill somebody or hurt somebody. Sit tight. I don't know how you'd literally sit tight, I guess like this. Oh, we got Elsa, nanesti udar v spinu. Is that the Russian version? I did not know that. Noj v spinu. Okay, so there's a Russian variant of this. This is good. I get to learn a lot of Russian when I'm online with you guys. All right, so sit tight means remain firmly in one's place. Stay put. Do not move. Sit tight. It means relax also. You can maybe say relax. They might say, we're going to be taking off in the airplane soon, so just sit tight. Does that make sense? Sidi smirna. Yeah, sit in peace. Plotna держится. Ah. Hello, Irina. And last one that sounds really terrible. Bite off more than you can chew. Sounds like you will choke. And that's kind of a figurative, this is a figurative expression of that thought. So I'll let you, I want to make sure I go slowly so you have a chance to write this down. And if not, you can go back and rewatch it later. Okay, so take on too much. That means to do too much, to extend yourself past what you can do. I think take on too much is to work too much. Does that make sense? All right. If it doesn't, write it in the comments section. Say, Matt, I don't understand. Ni panimayo. And I'll put it back up. All right. So let's go to our one translation before we go and talk with our special guest, Karl Штольц. I want you to translate this English phrase into Russian. In English, this is very awkward, but I know in Russian you have this. So let's return to our rams. Let's return to our rams. Hello, Anastasia. Oops. Nice to see lots of really familiar faces here. It's really great. All right. Anybody have it? I'm going to wait a little bit. While I'm waiting, I'm going to tell you I'm actually wearing this tie tonight. I usually don't, you know that. But today is my wedding anniversary, my 8th. So I will give a shout out to my wife. And I wore this tie on our wedding. So it is Vosmaya Godovshina, or Vosmaya Godovshina, my 8th wedding anniversary. Maybe you can tell me. I think I forgot how to say wedding anniversary. Ah, so Konstantin got it. Now we're getting him. Konstantin Vernomsa Kanashim Baranim. Elena got it. Excellent. Alexei got it. Oops, I put Svetlana up there, but Alexei got it too. Thank you very much. Thanks. People are saying congrats. Yes. 8 wonderful years. So I hope she's watching. Elza, great job. Okay. Natalia says, Давайте вернем наших баранов. Yeah, I guess that works too. So, all right. Well, let's move on to talk with our special guest. I know that's why you came here. And that's, so, Karl, you're here. Welcome.
Yeah. Добрый вечер.
Thank you for joining us tonight from Moscow. How's it going there? Is it warm enough or cold still?
Yeah, I don't know what the temperature is where everyone listening to this is right now, but it's nice and about 5 or 6 degrees in Moscow. The snow is melted. We had a lot of snow this year, but it's always been a little warmer, I think, than Siberia and the Urals. So
just a little bit, but about the same. Well, Karl, I want to tell our audience that you're a 35. You've been doing diplomacy for 35 years. You've worked in 11 countries, and you've worked in Washington D.C. Most of your career has been in Southeast Asia, but you've also been in Europe and in Africa. So my first question is: do you have a favorite tour or post that you had, or is it hard to answer that question?
It is hard to answer. There's a favorite part of every place I've been. And I'm not just saying that to be nice. Hello, Oleg. And by the way, before I start, I want to say happy anniversary, Matt. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Apologies to your wife that I'm taking you away from celebrating your anniversary tonight and doing this show, but I hope you get a chance to celebrate later, and
We
that's
will.
wonderful.
We will.
My wife and I have been married 30 years as of last July. So
And you met
may
her.
you be celebrating that many years with your wife.
And you met her on your first tour in New Zealand, correct?
Met her in New Zealand, my first time overseas, and yes, so we've been together a long time. But I spent time in Russia before. That was a very interesting time in Russia. It was a difficult time. It was 1990 to 92 as the Soviet Union was collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in many other parts of the world. In some places, I really liked the work that I had. In other places, I really liked the people, the lifestyle, the environment of the cities where I lived. It really varied. And there's no place that sort of was a favorite, although there's obviously places I remember more closely than others. But I had the wonderful fortune of being in South Africa, in Russia at a time of great change, in Indonesia when it was going through a movement to democracy, in Burma when it wasn't, unfortunately, and still isn't, but Myanmar. But yeah, every place I've been, there's something I really am fond of and would love to go back to.
I can't imagine all the memories you have. It's probably hard to keep track after so many countries.
You get forgetful, and then you don't have them.
I'll answer this question for you. Carl's in Moscow, and he lives in Moscow, so he's the U.S. Minister Counselor of Public Affairs. So you're in charge of a lot of the outreach we do, and also working with the press. But I'd also like to get back to, you served from 90 to 92 in Russia, and you lived in Moscow. I'm sure a lot has changed in Moscow since your time there, but could you name one thing that hasn't changed and then one thing that definitely has changed when you fast forward to 2021?
Okay, I think I'm going to do it the opposite way. I'm going to do what has changed the most. Hello, Elsa. And then what hasn't changed. What struck me when I first returned to Moscow last year after a long time away was how incredibly modern and international it and Russia is now. My memories of Russia were of a few shops, sort of the final days of the Soviet Union, that had only a few products and lines to get them, and not a lot of choice. And if you wanted to get anything that wasn't sort of mass produced, it was quite expensive. And the city itself looked a little bit sort of tired and worn down at that point. And to come back now and see an incredibly modern, contemporary city that would fit in anywhere in the world. If you took Moscow's skyline or the pictures I've seen, because thanks to COVID, I haven't been able to travel like I'd like to in Russia this time so far. But if you take the pictures of all the cities, if you take the variety of goods you can find, I'm amazed that Russians have very international tastes in what they like to eat. The apartments are very modern now. Lifestyle has really changed, and it's changed a lot for the better. And I think Russians should be very, very proud of that. What hasn't changed, it was changing when I was in Russia last time, but it's now more like when I came to Russia, is the diversity, the variety of information. I said that when I was here before, there was not a lot of variety of food or things in the shops. And likewise, when I was here at the first year of the Soviet Union, there was TASS and Pravda and a few other publications, but there wasn't a lot of different opinions in all of the media. And then by the time I left Russia in 92, there was quite a lot of different independent publications that had all sorts of different perspectives on all sides of politics. And it was quite fascinating to be there then. Now, unfortunately, I think we're back in a situation where there tends to be only a few viewpoints in the mainstream media, and it's very hard to find alternate opinions unless you look online.
Yeah, the media has changed, not only in Russia, but all over the world. But yes, I think distinctly here as well. One question about how long you've been in Russia for this tour.
This time I arrived a year and 2 months ago, so a few months before COVID arrived, unfortunately. Previously, I was in Russia for 2.5 years, so altogether about 3 years с половиной, but I hope to be here for many years to come.
So I was going to ask audience, if you have a question for Karl, please put it in the comments section. We'll answer you right away. He has a lot of experience in diplomacy, and he has a lot of experience with Russian. You studied history and Russian studies at the University of Virginia, and I wanted to know what attracted you to Russian studies at such a young age. Was there something you read or somebody you knew?
Well, actually, my father was in the United States Navy, the military, and as a result, I moved around with the family around the world with him. So that's probably what got me interested in diplomacy and travel. But then I went to my high school. My final years of pre-university education were in the Aleutian Islands in Alaska.
Oh, wow.
And the Aleutian Islands in Alaska are very close to Russia. The only radio station we could pick up on our radio was Radio Moskva. And the people of the Aleutian Islands, the Aleut Indians, still are Russian Orthodox believers, and most of them have Russian names, and most of them speak Russian. So when I had a choice of language to study, I chose Russian. It was a natural for that location, and I was fascinated and learned a lot about Russia from living there, and then decided to pursue it at university as well. No family background in Russia. You can see from my name, Штольц. There's a famous character in Oblomov called Штольц. I am not like Штольц in Oblomov. I'm more like Oblomov. I prefer to sit on the couch and think rather than run around and do things. But yeah, I'm of German origin, but I fell in love with Russia because I was in Alaska.
I did not know that. That's fascinating. I got a question from Elsa, and you had another question about visas, but as I always remind us, we don't talk really about visas. We'll put some links up in the comments section if you have visa questions, but this is about English, okay? So question here, what do you like about Russians?
I like so much about Russians. The main thing I like about Russians is that they have, they're brilliant. The intelligence of Russians that I talk to of all ages and of all levels amazes me. The amount of, the best example I can give is literature. Thanks to Russian schooling, Russians really know their own country's literature and poetry and many other countries' literature. And I've never been in another country where you can discuss famous works of literature or recite poems from the heart like you can see among Russians. And that love for literature and culture also goes into their soul. And I love the way they're very sincere, emotional, and really speak from their heart. I like Russian food. I like so many aspects of Russia. I even like Russian winter, although I haven't lived in Ekaterinburg, so I can't say for sure.
It has its pluses and minuses, mostly pluses.
A lot of minuses.
So I have Alex is going to give a question here. Do you know a little some Russian? Of course, вы говорите по-русски свободно, but
Конечно. Я занимался русским языком долго.
That's a good segue into talking about etymologies. And you brought to my attention last week that there are English words that have Russian origin. So I'm going to put one up on the screen, and you can just maybe talk a little bit briefly about each one.
Okay, happy to.
It's like a diplomat. Okay,
so that word is also, I think, found in Russian. And it's what my job is, so I thought I would describe that. But I don't know if people know where the word comes from. And diplomat, if you take away the last letter, is diploma, or in Russian, diplom, which is what someone receives when they graduate from a university.
Yeah.
In the Middle Ages, anyone who graduated was called a diplomat, a person who was educated. But the actual word comes from Latin, and it means die or to. Plomat, which was a piece of paper or a letter. So back in those days, before email, if you wanted to keep what you'd written secret, you would fold it over, and then you would stamp it with the seal of the ruler. And so someone who was authorized to carry a secret message from the ruler to another country was a person carrying a diplomatic letter. So the word comes from people who are entrusted by their country to carry messages to other countries.
Makes sense.
Not necessarily secret, but a folded up letter, or someone who happens to be educated enough to earn a diploma.
Makes sense. Let's skip to this one. Let's take this one down and go to bridge, which I did not know either.
Okay, well, there's bridge like most, and that word in English does not come from Russian, but there's a very popular card game in the West called bridge, and a lot of people, especially sort of my parents' generation and grandparents' generation, love to play bridge, but most people did not realize that the name comes from Russian, from birich, which was a Russian card game. It was popular a long time ago. You can read about it in old Russian literature, but that Americans and the English could not pronounce birich very easily, so they turned it into bridge, which sounded like a word they already knew, the English word for most.
Ah, okay. Let's do bachelor.
Okay, bachelor it goes back to sort of talking about university studies. If you graduate after 4 years of study, you get a baccalaureate, you get a bachelor's degree in arts or science or another topic. But bachelor in English also means an unmarried man. And the original meaning of the word comes from Bacchus or cow. So a bachelor was someone who looked after the cows. You had Veranyotsa k bananam before, returning to look after the rams. Well, someone who returns to look after the cows is a bachelor. And what happened was in Roman times, it was a job of someone who wanted to do more, but that was a necessary job for a young person. And then in the medieval times, a knight, a ritsar, would have someone who would help him with his horses and put on his armor, and he would be a knight bachelor, a knight in training. So then when it came to university study, the idea was someone who's learning a bachelor's degree instead of a doctor or a master's degree is in training for further study. So that's why we call that degree bachelor. And because young people that looked after cows and rams usually were not married, the term also became the term for an unmarried man, even if you don't look after cows.
I'm going to take this word down. I had a question here from Anastasia. Could you speak about some similarities and differences between Russians and Americans?
That's a very good question. In fact, we're going to be tomorrow, I think, doing a study on that very topic and see what we learn ourselves, because I think you have to be both a Russian and an American to know the answers to that. I'm only speaking from an American perspective. I think Russians and Americans have a lot more in common than we realize. There's a lot of emphasis by leaders and in media about the differences we have, the political differences or the distance between our countries. But of course, where I used to live in Alaska, we come very close together. But Russians and Americans both inhabit very large countries. So they have very wide views of possibilities and options. They are open to a lot of new thinking and ideas. I think they also tend to be very emotional people that consider family and close ties important, but aren't afraid to go out and adventure and try to achieve new things for themselves. One little anecdote is that Americans probably have more in common with Russia in terms of humor than sense of humor than they do with other countries and other cultures, because most of the people that became famous comics, comedians, and actors in America were immigrants from Russia. There was a wave of immigrants from Russia, many Jewish immigrants, but other religions too, that came to America and settled in New York in the 1890s, 1900s, 1910. And they brought their style of humor with them. So a lot of American humor, if you watch American television shows, almost every situation comedy has a version of Inspector General Revisor in one of their seasons, where an unusual person comes to visit that they think is someone else. A lot of traditional Russian stories have become American stories, and people don't realize that they come from Russia.
Oh, that's a good point. I did not know that either. I want to remind our audience, if you have a question, don't be afraid, be brave, be smelly, as you can say in Russian. That kind of made me think, have you ever had a funny instance with misunderstanding with the language, or have you heard of an instance with, mixing up Russian and English? That happens sometimes. I know I've done it.
Every day. Even though I've studied Russian for many years, I still make mistakes all the time. It's very easy. And likewise, when you speak English, don't worry about making mistakes. It is common. It sometimes leads to funny stories. I will tell a story about a very famous American political leader, Henry Kissinger, who was Secretary of State. He was, of course, originally from Germany, and he still had a German accent when he spoke English. But when he visited Moscow a long time ago, before, I think in the 1970s, he wanted to show off that he could speak Russian. So he was visiting the foreign minister of Russia, Andrei Gromyko, at the time, and he was at Gromyko's dacha, and he wanted to express to Gromyko that his wife had created a beautiful garden. So in his German accented Russian, he said, "Скажите вашей жене, что у нее хороший зад." He wanted to say "sad,"
Whoops.
but his German accent came in. So we're lucky we didn't have a nuclear war, because Kissinger made a comment about Mrs. Gromyko's back. But you can make mistakes in a language intentionally or unintentionally. It's very hard to do. I think learning and mastering a foreign language is an incredible skill. It opens you up to so many other things and understandings. I have loved studying Russian. I've loved reading poems in Russian and books in Russian, and I've loved translating. And it's just a wonderful way to get an insight into other cultures by learning their languages.
I totally agree. We have two quick questions here. I'm going to give them to you. One more. Favorite dish in Russia, and then from Olga, she asked, do you like any Russian stand-up comedians or maybe comedy shows? I can name one that's pretty funny, but if you have any.
Okay, you please name yours, because I have to confess that I have not watched a lot of Russian comedy shows this time since I've been back, and the ones I remember from before are long ago.
When I was studying Russian in Washington, we would watch Uralsky Pelmeni, which is actually originally from Yekaterinburg, and it's a live stand-up program. And I got most
that's
of the
very
jokes.
funny, because my favorite food is Uralsky Pelmeni. But no, I think I love all forms of Russian food. I love Russian bread, and the most famous Russian foods and less famous ones too. But I would have to say, if I had one choice, it would definitely be pelmeni. And thank you for the compliment, Oleg.
Yes, thanks, Oleg. I'm reading these quick here. Do you know, is there a most German state in the U.S.? I'm trying to think if there is one, but I don't. I think they're kind of everywhere.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Anna. Thank you. America had different waves of immigration from different countries. In some places, it fused together, so it's very hard to tell national origins. In other places, there were certain groups that stayed in one location, so you can find parts of America that have a lot of one culture. The Germans, yes, yes, Elsa. The Germans tended to come to America in the 1800s, and they were farmers. So they settled primarily across the farm regions of America from Pennsylvania all the way out to the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
My ancestors were from Ohio and Indiana and Wisconsin, the farm regions of America on my father's side. And there's even a culture in America called the Pennsylvania Dutch that are not Dutch, they're German, but they've been there for many hundred years and they still speak a version of German. And they're very famous because in their culture, they do not believe in using anything that was not mentioned in the Bible. So they do not use electronics or drive cars or use motors. They only rely on traditional forms of building, and they ride horses.
Yeah, there's a couple enclaves throughout the U.S. that live that way, and it's quite fascinating. I'll put Anastasia had a nice comment here. I'll put up for you to read.
Strong characters, yes. Thank you, Anastasia. I agree. I think, as I said before, I think because our countries both have they were built on the frontier. We both occupied countries that had large amounts of empty space, or not empty because we had indigenous populations in those spaces, but the perception that you could travel and go anywhere, the sky's the limit, to use one of your up in the air kind of quotes. There's another American quote, the sky is the limit. Mm-hmm. You can go as far as you want if you try hard. And I think that perception leads to strong character and desire to do a lot for yourself and for others.
So that's a perfect segue into advice of studying English. We have a lot of really dedicated English speakers who watch, and they're trying to get to that next level. What advice do you have as someone who's tried to improve their Russian throughout their life?
Well, in studying Russian, I remember one of my teachers quoted Lenin often and said, "Uchitsa I uchitsa I uchitsa." And that's very true. I think the more you practice, the better you get. Watching shows like this, learning interesting expressions and phrases helps a lot. One of my hobbies, one of my loves is the way that words are created. So that's why we talked about some of the definitions and where words come from today. And if you break down words into parts, so for example, diplomacy, if you know die means two in Latin, and you also see that in duo and lots of other languages, then you can figure out words more easily. Russian is wonderful for that. One of the things I love about studying Russian is you can often break it down by roots and prefixes and suffixes and understand more about where a word comes from. English is harder because we take our words from so many different languages. So it's very hard to find sometimes where a word comes from. But if you look a word up in the dictionary, it will say the origins, and it's easier to remember if you think from now on that a bachelor is someone who chases cows or a diplomat is someone who carries a folded letter. Mm-hmm. You create a picture in your mind that makes it easier to remember the words. So that's what I would suggest. Study a lot and try to find little tricks that create ways that you can remember words.
I think that's great advice, and I've tried to do that as well with Russian. But I think that is a perfect way to try to maximize the time you have in your life to improving, because it'll take a lifetime to master Russian, and it takes a lifetime to master English. So,
and practice makes perfect, as Irina points out.
Yes, very good.
I need more practice because I'm not perfect.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Carl, and thank you for your questions, everyone. They're great questions, and I appreciate you taking the time to share some of your experiences here in Russia. And I hope the pandemic ends and you can enjoy more of Russia.
I have to visit Yekaterinburg. That's my goal.
Skoro будет.
Skoro будет.
Yeah.
But thank you all for your time, and thank you for participating in this show, and thank you for studying English, because the fact that you're interested in English tells me you're interested in dialogue, in conversation, and I admire people who are.
Absolutely.
So, спасибо.
Don't go off the line. Don't go off the line just yet. But I'm gonna tell people about next week's guest. Will be the same day, Tuesday, 7 p.m. We have a special guest, Victoria Kotova. She teaches English on YouTube. She has a good following, and she has this very similar approach to Carl in trying to paint a picture in your head when you're trying to learn English. So she doesn't focus on memorization of vocabulary, but she wants to figure out shortcuts of how to describe what you want and express what you want. So I hope you'll join us next week. She's great, and she also lived in the United States for a year studying. So she can also answer your questions about what it's really like for a Russian in the United States. So thanks for joining us, everybody. I hope you have a great night. And до встречи на следующую неделю, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
That's cool. Thank you.